Once upon a time, in the busy city of Ibadan, lived a young woman who forced a man to snatch wigs off the heads of other women. Her name was Tiko, and she had a strange obsession with wigs that she could not afford. Tiko owned more wigs than half of the big girls in town. Her collection was filled with expensive human hair wigs, each one stolen directly from another woman's head. Yet, despite having so much, Tiko was never satisfied. She always wanted more, and so she coerced her boyfriend Jide into stealing wigs from unsuspecting women on the streets. Jide was a dispatch rider who had fallen deeply in love with her. He did everything she asked, hoping that one day Tiko would love him the way that he loved her. But Tiko kept him close only because of what she stood to gain from him. Her eyes were set on bagging a rich man, someone who would rescue her from struggle and hand her the soft life that she dreamed of. But Jide was too blind to see the truth. He believed that obedience would draw her closer. So, he snatched wigs again and again, ignoring the consequences. At first, he promised himself that it would only happen once. Just one wig, and Tiko would see how much I love her, he told himself. But Tiko kept demanding more. She always compared herself to others and wanted what they had, even when she knew that she was too lazy to work. Tiko wanted the soft life and used Jide to achieve some of her goals. She had a string of boyfriends who either provided her with money or provided her with gifts. If one man bought her shoes, another paid her rent, whilst Jide was the one burdened with the task of snatching expensive wigs for her. Jide had no idea that he was an option amongst many. To him, Tiko was the love of his life, the woman who agreed to date him, even when he had so little to give. A dispatch rider, dating a girl who was way above his league. Jide would stand back and watch as she puts on the wig in front of a mirror, flipping her hair in joy. That joy alone was enough to push him back to the streets, and every time he arrived at home with a new wig, Tiko's love sounded sweeter. "You really love me, Jide," she would say, smiling as she fixed the wig on her head and called him all sorts of sweet names that she could ever think of. Jide lived for those words. They made the fear fade, silenced his conscience, and pushed him back onto the streets again and again. Soon, snatching wigs became a normal routine for him. Women screamed. Some chased after him, whilst others stood in disbelief as they watched a dispatch rider zoom off with their wig in his hand. Expensive wigs that the girls used their life savings to secure. "If only I bought a plot of land with the money, I won't be crying like this," one of the women said, after she returned home with cornrows. Another chased after him until she fell to the ground and ripped her skirt, but Jide did not care. All he wanted to see was the smile on Tiko's face when she saw the expensive wig that he had secured. One evening, as the sun began to set, Jide spotted a woman walking calmly by the roadside. Her wig was unlike any other that he had ever seen. Long, thick, shiny, and the strands were so beautiful that he swayed as she walked. Something inside him warned him not to touch the wig, but Tiko's voice echoed loudly in his head. "If you love me, you'll find a way and get me a beautiful wig." In one swift move, Jide snatched the wig as he zoomed off on his bike. The woman did not scream or chase after him like the other women. Instead, she laughed, a slow, hollow laughter that chilled him to the bones. Jide refused to look back. He drove straight to Tiko's house and handed the wig over to her. When Tiko saw the wig, her eyes widened in excitement. "This is the best wig you have ever gotten for me," she said to Jide as she jumped up in excitement and rushed off to the mirror. Tiko did not ask any questions. She placed the wig on her head as she squealed in excitement. The moment the wig touched her scalp, the lights in her room flickered. The air grew cold and a loud wind swept through the room. Jide staggered backwards as Tiko opened her mouth in terror. Suddenly, everything went dark and Tiko began to feel a sharp pain in her head. She tried to yank off the wig, but the wig refused to come off her head. Tiko screamed out in terror as she pleaded for Jide to help her, but Jide could not. He stood there frozen as he felt a strange coolness wrap around his body like a blanket. It wasn't just the temperature, it was something deeper, like his very existence was slipping through the cracks of reality. Jide looked down at his hand and realized that they were fading. Tiko, he cried out, but his voice had now become thin like a whisper. Tiko turned to him in horror, and she stared right at him. She could still see him, but her eyes widened in disbelief to realize that Jide was now fading away. Jide, what's happening to you? She asked, terrified, as Jide stood there terrified as well. I don't know what's happening, no. He yelled, though even he could barely hear himself. He reached out to touch her shoulder, but his fingers passed through her like smoke. No matter what he touched, her table, the floor, the walls, everything slipped through him as panic gripped his chest like a vice. Jide was not just invisible, he was detached from the world, like a ghost who was now living amongst the living. Tiko rushed back to the mirror and she pulled at the wig over and over again. She tugged, scratched, screamed, but the wig did not move. Instead, it tightened on her head, leading to extreme pain that shot through her skull like fire. Ah! She screamed as she collapsed to the floor. Jide knelt beside her helplessly as he began to apologize. Tiko, I'm sorry, he cried. I didn't know this would happen, he said to her as she turned to him angrily, her eyes blazing with rage, despite the pain that was tearing through her head like a knife. Sorry, Tiko screamed. Why are you saying sorry to me? Get this wig off now, she said as she clutched her head and wept bitterly. Jide, I knew you were useless, but I never knew that this would happen to me, she screamed, her voice breaking as she clutched her head in agony. The pain was no longer ordinary pain. It felt as though hot needles were being driven into her scalp. In desperation, Tiko crawled into the kitchen and grabbed a pair of scissors. If it won't come off, I'll cut it, she cried hysterically. She raised the scissors and sliced her into the hair. The scissors snapped in half. Not a single strand of hair fell. She screamed louder and grabbed a razor blade. She cut again, but nothing. The blade bent like rubber. Instead of shortening, the hair began to take root into her scalp. Right before her eyes, it merged into her scalp like her real hair. Tiko shrieked and staggered backwards. What is happening to me? She cried as Jide stood beside her, invisible, shaking. I'm so sorry, Tiko. I'm sorry, he whispered, but she slapped the air angrily. Shut up, she yelled as she winced in pain and blamed him for all that was happening. Tiko asked him to take her to where he snatched the wig from, so Jide led the way. Even though no one else could see him, Tiko could still see him. They returned to the exact spot, the road where Jide snatched the wig off the woman's head. However, there was no woman there, no passerby, only the sound of the wind brushing against their skin. Where is she now? Tiko cried as she began to yell out for anyone to hear her. Whoever owns this hair, should come and take it off. Jide in that moment remembered that he promised to buy his mother's medication on his way back from work. Her meds had finished, and Jide knew how dangerous it was for her to skip her meds. So, he stood there on the empty road, invisible, listening to Tiko scream and curse the air. And for the first time in a very long while, he felt helpless. Tiko, he said softly, his voice trembling as he pleaded with her to help him buy the meds for his mother. My bag is in your house, and the money is inside. Please help me buy the medication, as my mother depends on it, he said to Tiko, who turned and looked at him angrily. How dare you ask me for a favor? Do I look like your slave? Do I look like your slave? Tiko snapped, her voice dripping with bitterness as she clutched her head in pain and let out a sharp, bitter laughter. After everything you've put me through, you still have the audacity to ask me for help? She said to Jide, who she told that his mother was not her responsibility. Jide froze as the words hit him like a rock. He began to plead with Tiko, telling her how critical his mother's condition was. Tiko, please, he begged softly. My mother will die without her medication. I have the money in my bag. Tiko, all you have to do is to help me. Help me buy the meds from the pharmacy. Tiko rolled her eyes in disgust. You seem to have a death wish for your mother, if you're relying on me to save her, she said as she walked away from Jide, not caring that no one could see him apart from her. Jide stood there helpless. He rushed back to his house and met his mother, who was lying there struggling for her life. Jide watched as she grabbed her empty medication bottle and shook it, hoping to find some pills inside that could save her life. He screamed out in pain as he watched his mother gasp for her last breath. Jide ran around, pleading for people to help him, but no one could see or hear him. By the time he returned, his mother had died, and Jide realized that he was no longer invisible. He rushed her to a nearby hospital, but the doctors revealed to him that his mother was dead. The words hit Jide like a blow. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Jide. I wish there was something we could do," the doctor said as Jide stood there, staring at his mother's body. The woman who had prayed for him every night and warned him about choosing love without sense. His legs gave way as he collapsed to the floor and let out a painful cry that tore through the hospital like a wounded animal. People turned. Nurses froze, but no one could heal what had already happened, and Jide never forgave himself. Tiko, on the other hand, moved from place to place in search of help. She met doctors who could not believe that the hair that was well rooted in her scalp did not belong to her. "Madam, you have such a beautiful and long hair," they said to Tiko, who tried to explain to them that the hair did not belong to her. At the point, the doctors began to believe that she had a mental problem. Tiko left the hospital in tears. She returned home and thought of what to do as she made up her mind to visit a native doctor. The native doctor sat still for a very long moment, eyes closed, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Then, he opened them slowly, his voice low and grave. "You crossed paths with Naji Edo, the keeper of vanity," he began, his tone almost reverent. "She is no ordinary spirit. She is one of the ancient deities from the river kingdoms, long forgotten by many, but feared by those who remember. Her hair holds power. It's not just beauty, it is pride made flesh, a crown that cannot be worn by those who are not chosen." Tiko's lips trembled. I didn't know and I wore it." "You don't need to know to be guilty," the man said sharply. "The wig you wear was no mere accessory. It was her gift, taken by force. That hair was offered during a sacred ritual by a maiden who died in the river for love. It was never meant to be worn again. When Jide took it, he interrupted something divine. When you place it on your head, you seal the fate that was never yours to hold." He looked her in the eyes and revealed that the deity does not forget, and she does not forgive either. Tiko, filled with so much terror, asked what the deity wanted, and the man revealed to her that the deity takes whatever she wants. The man told Tiko that to get rid of the hair on her head, she needed to find Jide, that only him, the man whose hands had taken what did not belong to him, could save her from the pain that she now suffered. The native doctor's voice dropped to a whisper as he revealed that Jide must agree to willingly sleep in the shrine for 3 days to undo that which he had done. He revealed that if Jide refused, she would live the rest of her life in pain. The hair will remain, and everything else she loves will be taken away from her one after the other. Tiko's heart sank as she left the shrine trembling. She remembered all that she did to Jide, and how she refused to help his sick mother on that fateful night. Tiko did not know what to do. She arrived at his house a few minutes later and met a group of people who informed her that Jide slept and did not wake up. He died the night before, after mourning his mother, who died a few days ago. Many believed that he took his own life, but no one could say for sure. Some said Jide's heart simply gave up because of too much grief. Tiko collapsed to the ground the moment she heard the words. Her ears rang, her chest tightened as the whole world began to spin like a carousel. "Dead?" she whispered. "No now, Jide cannot be dead," she cried aloud as she screamed his name over and over again until her voice broke and her throat burned. That was the moment that it truly hit her, that Jide was truly gone. The only person who could save her life in that moment. And Tiko knew that she was the cause of it. She returned home broken as she wished that she helped his mother buy the medication on that fateful night. For all these years, Jide had done whatever she wanted. The only time that he begged her for a favor, Tiko looked him in the eyes and refused, despite knowing that he had no one else to turn to. Now, here she was, unsure of what to do. Tiko decided to return back home, her steps slow and heavy, as though the road itself was now judging her. Her head throbbed with every moment, as her thoughts became darker than night. Tiko kept replaying Jide's face in her mind, the way he pleaded with her, and how she turned her back on him, without even a second thought. As she walked aimlessly, a man ran towards her and yanked the wig off her head. Ah! Tiko screamed as the pain coursed through her body like a wave. Before she could even turn, the thief dashed past her as he ran into the night with speed. Tiko could not believe her eyes. She stood there for a few minutes as she tried to understand what had just happened. The pain she felt in that moment was nothing compared to the relief that now flooded her body. "It's gone," she whispered in disbelief as she touched her scalp over and over again. No tightening, no burning, no strange cold wind, just her bare head that now ached a little. For the first time in months, Tiko laughed, a broken, shaky laughter that screamed relief. She arrived home a few minutes later, unsure of how to feel. The juju man's words replaying in her mind as she wondered if the curse had finally been broken. That night, as Tiko drifted into a very deep sleep, she found herself standing in the middle of the ocean. The water was unnaturally still as shadows moved beneath the surface. Then, from the depth of the sea, a woman emerged, dressed in white, her eyes glowing faintly like dying embers. Her hair was long, thick and glistening, the exact same wig that Jide had stolen. Only now, it moved on its own, floating like it had life of its own. Tiko tried to move, but her body was frozen. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound escaped. The woman stepped forward and gently traced a finger down her cheek. Her touch burned cold. Then she drew a mark, an intricate symbol on her face, as she whispered some words that Tiko found hard to understand. As the mark seared into Tiko's skin, her vision blurred. She felt herself sinking, not just in water but into something deeper. Tiko woke up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, as her face tingled in a way that she could not explain. Tiko sat there terrified as her phone suddenly began to buzz. All the men who ever asked her out and sponsored her lifestyle ended things with her as Tiko read their messages one after the other. "I don't think we should see each other again. This thing between us is not working. Please don't contact me anymore. I've moved on. I need space. I don't feel comfortable around you again." Every man, every single one of them, who once showered her with money and paid her rent, abandoned her as if they had a meeting about her in that same moment. Tiko then realized that the curse was still in full effect. The evil hair was gone, but what the deity truly wanted had never been the hair. It was her desire, her pride, and the way she fed on other people's sacrifice. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and Tiko tried everything to find a man. She dressed better than she had ever done, changed her clothes, perfume, even the way that she laughed. She joined gyms, attended weddings, and smiled at strange men who did not even spare her a glance. Tiko began to post pictures online, carefully edited pictures that made her look extremely beautiful, but no man liked the picture or even commented on it like they used to. Tiko realized that men no longer saw her. It was as if a black veil covered their eyes as they walked past her in the street, their eyes looking over her as if she was air. Tiko tried dating apps, but her inbox remained dry like harmattan. Slowly, the truth settled in that the curse had not been broken. Tiko sat there in regret as she wished that she never pushed Jide into snatching wigs on the street. Her life was now a living hell as she sat in her living room hopeless. Tiko, in that moment, heard a voice from her TV that said something that caught her attention. She looked up and saw a pastor who asked a question. "Why do you seek peace in vanity when peace is found in the Prince of Peace?" Tiko froze. The man on the screen was not yelling or performing dramatic miracles like the others that she had seen. His voice was calm, his words gentle, but they pierced deep into her soul. That pain you carry, that regret, that emptiness, only Jesus Christ can truly feel it. That which the world gives you can be taken away, but what he gives, joy, peace, eternal life, no one can steal. Tears welled up in Tiko's eyes as she continued to listen to the pastor speak. You may have made terrible choices. You may have destroyed someone else's life to live yours, but it's not too late. Come to him. Lay your burdens at his feet. He will forgive you and he will restore you. In that moment, something inside her broke. Tiko fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she began to ask God for forgiveness. God, please help me, she whispered. I've done terrible things. I was selfish. I destroyed a man who loved me. Please forgive me. Save me. I don't want to live like this anymore. The pastor mentioned that his church was located just a few streets away from Bodija Market, so Tiko sprang up to her feet. She barely even washed her face or changed her clothes. She ran through the streets of Ibadan with no wig on her head, no makeup on her face, and no pride on her chest. Minutes later, she burst into the church and cried out, "Please, where's the pastor? I need help. Please help me." The ushers rushed to calm her as she broke down in the aisle. Minutes later, the pastor walked in. "My daughter," he said softly, "God has been waiting for you." Tiko did not care who was watching. She fell to the ground, wailing, confessing everything. Jide, the wigs they snatched, the curse, the pride, the wickedness, the death, and all the loss that she had suffered. The pastor and his team prayed over her. They laid hands on her and began to call on the heavens. A strong wind swept through the church as Tiko felt something violent rise up inside of her. She screamed, coughed, and began to convulse on the ground. "In the name of Jesus," the pastor declared, "every curse from the pits of darkness, every spirit of vanity, pride, and manipulation, leave her now." Tiko let out a final scream, and then she went still. The entire church went silent as her eyes finally opened. Tiko sat up slowly, the ache in her soul gone, the veil she once felt around her lifted, the weight that had dragged her for months dissolved. Tiko felt peace for the first time in months. She gave her life to Christ and joined the workforce of the church. Tiko began to evangelize on the streets, warning other young girls to stay away from vanity. She told her story to other girls, chasing the soft life through shortcuts, warning them of the consequences of greed and manipulation. That was how Tiko learned her lessons the hard way, never to build her happiness on another person's pain. The lesson to be learned from this story is that when you build your joy on another person's pain, that joy will never last. Greed, pride, and the desire for a soft life without honest work always comes with a price, even if it takes time to show. Love that is manipulated becomes destruction, and sacrifices forced from others return as loss. True happiness cannot be stolen, coerced, or worn like a wig. It must be earned with integrity, compassion, and gratitude, or it will eventually slip away, leaving only regret behind.